everyone, Maris here with Code at Home. Today we're going to talk about Apple. If you have not noticed my t-shirt behind me. So more specifically, we're going to talk about the apple.com website. So let me load that up. There we go. This is the website as of today. We're going to try to replicate this website using only the HTML, CSS, and maybe a little bit of JavaScript, but let's keep things simple. So first thing that I like to do is basically break down, when I start any project like this, break down the project into components. So the first component that I see here, basically, we can call the navigation bar. Then you have these two other bars here. Basically, I'm calling them like announcement bars. And then also this navigation bar is kind of fixed on the top. And there is a nice blur effect at the background here. We're going to try to replicate that as well. Then after that, we have these sections that I like to call hero sections here. A big section with a big announcement. They have one for iPhone SE, one for iPhone 11, another one for iPad Pro. And then they enter in this layout, two-column layout grid here with different minor announcements. And the footer, and then you have the footer at the bottom of the page. All right, so not so complex, but let's see how we would go about replicating this. First thing, I'm going to load here what we call CodeSandbox. And CodeSandbox is great to keep all your projects in the cloud and actually your development environment on the cloud instead of installing your computer. You keep everything in the cloud. It has a bunch of templates here that you can start from, like for Vue.js, React.js, Angular, anything. And it's free for public and open source projects. So you can just start creating your things and keep everything organized in the cloud and access from any computer from anywhere. So I create this folder here, call it Apple Clone. I'm going to double click that. Then they have this big button called New Sandbox. That's basically a new project. Click there. Then is where you see the different templates that you can use to start your projects from. So this is going to be a from scratch project. So I'm going to start and do everything from scratch. So I'm just clicking this static template here. That's going to give me only index.html here with some basic structure for the HTML, and then a little bit of this heading as a content. Here is a preview panel. I'm going to just delete this heading that they put by default here, save, and you can see that's gone. So what we're going to do next is basically clean up this project. First thing, let me actually change this to apple.com clone website, save as a title. So let me go back to the browser here, and then in here I'm going to open a new tab and go to this project called CDNJS. And CDNJS is basically a project, basically CDN is a short for Content Delivery Network. What means is that I can load some scripts like jQuery, React, or anything from the cloud, not from my server, but from external servers that are closer to the visitors of my website or web application. So if I'm from the US, I'm going to load the scripts from the US. If I'm in Europe, it's going to try to load from a server that is in Europe. So that's going to make things feel faster when they load. So I'm going to look for this project called Normalize.css. And what Normalize CSS is basically a way to remove any kind of styles that the browsers put by default into web pages. So if I go back to CodeSandbox here, and then let me write down something. Hello, actually let me put a div and hello world. Okay, so save. And as you can see here, there is hello world, but I cannot see anything. So what I'm going to do is basically after my title, I'm going to open a tag, a style tag here. And then inside of that, I'm going to say, hey, every div in this application is going to have a background red. And when I do that, you can see here that I have a background red in hello world. But then you can see that I have this spacing around. And why I have that? And I have not included that spacing in the project. So why is that? So by default, the browser is including some padding and some margins through my project that I'm not aware of. I could not be aware of it. So to minimize that, the Normalize CSS, what it does, that project, is removing any style that the browsers put by default into pages, web pages. And that's great because you don't have to concern about overwriting things just to remove that stuff. Like that project is going to take care of all this cleanup for you. So let me remove this CSS here, I don't want that. I'm going to keep this style tags just because I'm going to put all our CSS there as a starting point, and then later on I'm going to move to a external file. So let me go back to the browser, and this is the normalized project. I'm going to copy here the minified version of it because it's smaller, it's more compact. So I copy it, I can close this, go back to CodeSandbox, and here, right after my title, before my styles, I'm going to create a link tag, and in the href of that link tag, I'm going to paste our script. And you can see that that spacing that I was talking about is gone now. So basically clean up the styles for you. Another thing that I like to do, let's go to our style tag here. Let's target the body element of HTML. That's where all the content of the page is going to be stored. I'm going to say that the font family that's going to use is sans serif. By default, it's using a serif font here. Serif fonts are not great to people to read when it's small like this. So I'm just changing to sans serif. That's more like, is better for reading. I'm also going to set the base font size as 14 pixels. I think that's what Apple sets the size for. It's a little bit smaller of the default. I think the browser defaults to 16 pixels. So we make a little bit smaller here. Also, what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this div here that I created with Hello World. And let's start creating our structure of the website. So if you go back to the Apple website, and go here, you see that I have the navigation bar. So let's do that one. So here in my body, I'm going to write nav as a HTML element. And then if I save, I don't see anything because I removed the content of Hello World. So instead of nav, I'm just going to write some text. So I can actually see here in the preview what I'm doing. After the nav, I'm going to have a div with a class of announcement. I think this is going to work. There we go. So what happened here is that CodeSandbox has by default what they call emmet. And emmet is a shortcut to write HTML and CSS. So if I write a div and then put a hash and put Marais and then a tab in my keyboard, it's going to basically knows that in CSS a hash means ID, and it's trying to replicate that here. So ID Marais. That's very neat. That's actually real good to improve productivity when you're writing code. So I'm going to duplicate this announcement here because I have two announcement bars. The first one is the COVID-19 announcement bar, and the other one is the shop online. There we go. So when I save, I have navigation, COVID-19, and shop online as the bars that I have in this page. Let's take a look in the bars in the website again. So when I inspect the bar here, I inspect, and they kind of look the same, the height, so I'm going to keep the same one. So when I go here when I right click and inspect, it open up here the web inspector from Chrome. When I hover the code, it highlights the element in the page. So I'm highlighting here the navigation bar. And then I see that the height is 44 pixels. So let's do that. So it's going to be nav, a minimum height, because it could maybe increase depending on the elements that are inside. It'll be 44 pixels. I'm going to save that, and you can see it's bigger now. If I go back here, these three bars are kind of the same height. So why not reuse this code? So I'm going to do a comma. Then I'm going to say dot announcement is also going to be 44. And you can see that now I have COVID, shop online, and navigation is the same height. I cannot actually see because I don't have a color as a background, but it's there. I also like to use this as a, I'm going to display these elements as a flex container in CSS. And I'm going to also align the items in these bars as the center of the bar. So you can see that now they're aligned in the center. So I could put like background red just so I can see them, and then maybe add a margin bottom like 2 pixels so I can space them out, and then you guys can see the preview what's happening. So the bars are here, they are centralized in the middle of the container, and the text is there. So I'm going to remove this because this is just for debugging the CSS, so it's gone. I'm also, throughout the website here, there is this notion of dark and light UI. So this is the light UI for announcement, this is the dark UI for announcement. In the dark version of it, you have basically this blue background. And basically the navigation is also dark UI because there is a darker background there. So what I'm going to do, I like to define at the bottom of all CSS, I like to define here what they call the dark UI. And for the dark UI to work well, I'm going to create a generic class called dark. And then every time that element has this class, is going to have a background dark or black. And then the color of the text is going to be white. So let's do that. So background black and color for the text white. There we go. So none of these elements are using that. So let's do that for the navigation. So I'll put dark. And as you can see, the navigation now is dark. The color of the content is white. But see, the first announcement is also a dark announcement. So let me put that too. But differently from the navigation, this one should not have a black background, should be a blue. So what Apple does is throughout the website it uses kind of this blue as a primary color. So I'm going to define that color as my primary color. So I'm going to go here, and then this is the color that is using. I'm going to copy that blue. I'm going back to CodeSandbox, and at the beginning of the styles here, I also like to define, actually let me write a comment, variables. I wanted to use CSS variables to make this project more scalable. So I'm going to write the root variables here, and then I'm going to write this color black for the color black. And the color black has a hexadecimal code of 0000 and a color white with a hexadecimal FFFFF. And then I also have, we just talked about it, color primary. So for the primary color, that's going to be the blue that I just copied from the Apple website. So I'm saving this, and then where I have black here, I'm going to change to variable color black. And for the white, variable color white. So now, how can I actually put the blue color as the background of the announcement bar then? Basically what I'm going to do is right here after the navigation and announcement, I'm going to say announcement again. When announcement has also a class dark together, is going to have a background color of variable color primary. That's going to give that bar like basically the color blue. And that's why, because here I have announcement and dark at the same time. And that's what I did here. Instead of separate, I put them together because they basically, this element have both. All right, so things are looking good now. So next step, let's create, oh, actually this navigation, actually no, let's go to the website. Let's create these hero sections here. So in the HTML here, I'm going to, after the announcement bars, I'm going to basically say, and actually I can organize a little bit, put a comment here, say navigation, and then after that I put like announcement bars, then I put another comment here, say hero sections, and then I put here another, what's going to be this? It's going to be a section. And I'm going to make, yeah, it's just a section. Okay, section with a class of hero. There you go, class hero section. The first one is iPhone SE. Then I have two more, and the second one is iPhone 11. And this guy is going to be iPad Pro. That's what I have, right? So let me go back here to the website. iPhone SE, iPhone 11, iPad Pro. Okay, great. So let me give a minimum height for this guys so I can actually see here in the preview. I'm going to create a, here after the announcement and dark, I'm going to create a new class called hero. I'm going to give a mean height of 300 pixels. So if I save that, you can see that space it out a little bit more here. And then I'm going to, okay, hero section. Then after that, what I want to do is basically also put dark to the first one, iPhone SE, because that one is a dark layout. If I go here, there we go. So I'm also noticing that this background is not actually black, so let me inspect this hero section here and see what that background is. Is this color? I think it's this color here. Let's see. Yeah, that's it. This color, okay, that's the color, 131313. So let's change our background black here to actually be that 131313. So save, and okay, there we go. It changed the color. It's not black anymore. It's this color here, this shade of black. So next step is I'm going to, okay, I have these three sections here. Then I have to work in the grid after this. That's basically these ones here. So let's do a grid layout now. So for that, so after I do this, I'm going to create here grid of announcement grid. Announcement grid. So I'm going to basically create a section. I'm going to give a class of grid. I'm going to then write down like 6 divs here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Save. Then I think the first one was something about college. Yeah, college. And then I do AirPods, and then I do Apple Card, TV Plus, Watch, and then reopening stores. Okay. So college. Then this one is AirPods. Then this one is Apple Card. Then this one is going to be Apple TV Plus. Then this is going to be Apple Watch. And the last one is going to be reopening stores. All right, save. If I go down here, all the sections are here. But it's not looking as a grid right now, so we need to make it that be a grid. So I'll have at the end of here, I'll put grid. I'll put display as a CSS grid. I also want that to be divided into columns. So what I'm going to do is do a grid template columns, and I'm going to do auto. So what that means is basically going to be 2 columns with automatic width for each of them. So I'm going to save that, and as you can see here, they are divided now. All right, so I'm also going to include a minimum height of, actually not to the grid itself, but to the elements of the grid. So grid, and all the first divs of the grid is going to be, have a minimum height of 300 pixels. And there you go. They are now like all the blocks are there. So if I go back to the website, I noticed that they have this white spacing between the grids and also between the sections. So here, here, and then here. So let's add that. So the way that we're going to do this is basically I'm going to say every time that I have a hero or I have and for we have a grid, I want to do a gap between these elements. That's going to be a margin bottom of 12 pixels. Or I basically start to define more variables here, and I say that these are my colors. Then I go after the colors, I say spacing. And then for space, I say space. Space S for space is small. I say this is going to be 8 pixels. Then space medium is going to be 12 pixels, and space large is going to be 24 pixels. There we go. So this works. And then here in the hero grid spacing, margin bottom, instead of do that, I do margin variable space medium, 12 pixels between these sections. I also noticed that in the Apple website they have a color light here that's not white, it's an off-white color. So let me copy that color. Let me see what that is. It's that unit wrapper. So it's a FA. I'm going to copy that, go back to the editor here, Then I'm going to define another color that's going to be color light. And I'm going to define that as that FA. And I'm going to give the hero, everything, all the elements inside of hero, the hero background color is that. So var color light, there you go. And then you can see here that now I can see they have that background light color here, the off-white, and I have the spacing that I just defined there. And all of them have that, including the grid. There you go. So I also want the elements for the grid to have that same background color, the light background color. You can see that this is using that, is using that, is using that, is using that. The only one that's not is basically this guy here, the TV plus, yeah, that are the two ones that are not. So that can be a edge case, it can be a special case. So let me go back to the code editor and say that for this grid, first div, all of them is going to also have a background var color light. There you go. Save, and now all of them have that color. But they actually don't have a spacing between them. So to do that, I'm going back here where I define the columns and say that I want a gap between them of also, oops, not this, but space medium. So it's a gap between the elements, so of the space median here that we just defined as 12 pixels. And then you can see now that the sections are separate and everything seems to be working just fine. There you go, looking good now. So it's getting there. All right, so next step is for us to define, after the grid, I need to define the footer. And I just write that down here and write footer. There we go. So go all the way down, footer is here. Okay, so let me take a look in the footer right now. So there is a background color there too. Let me see what that background color is, and that can be specific to the footer itself. So right here, footer. Then I'm going to have a background color of F5, F5, F5. So that's a special case. I'm not going to put that in my variables because I'm not planning to reuse that. So it's going to be just for this element. So what I'm going to do is basically here at the bottom, I'll do footer, I'll do a background color of that F5, F5, F5. And you can see that the background color is here. I don't know if you can really see because a little bit of a white too, but it's there. And there you have it. This is our basic structure for the website. The only thing that I can still do in this video is to make the navigation not to be fixed at the top. So let's do actually be fixed at the top when you scroll down. So how we go about doing that with just CSS? So basically here I'll go create a navigation element alone in the CSS. I'm going to say that the navigation alone is going to have a position fixed at the top. Also top 0, so it's going to be fixed at the top of the page. If you don't put that, it means that if I have a margin or padding in the HTML itself or the elements right after, it's going to push the navigation down, back, down. So we don't want that, so I include the 0 to prevent that. Also, we can see that when I do that, the width is not all the way, and the elements from that were below shift to the top. And that's why this element lost his position in the HTML structure. Is fixed, is also floating on top of everything. So I don't want actually that to happen. I want basically this to keep the width all the way, and I wanted the elements to preserve the spacing for the navigation bar as well, because I wanted the COVID to come right after navigation. So how we go to do that? So first thing, let's fix the width of the element. So do a width of 100 VW, that we with 100% of the viewport available to you right now. So when I save that, there we go, the width is fixed. The navigation is fixed right now on the top. You can see that if I scroll up and down, it's there. But the COVID announcement bar is actually underneath the navigation bar. So to fix that, we're going to basically create a class that says navgap. And then what I can do for this guy is say that it's going to have a minimum height of 44 pixels. That's basically the minimum height that these guys are using here in the navigation announcement. I could actually just put this class here right after these guys, because this class is actually I cannot do that. Let me just go back. Navgat, and navgat is not a minimum height, it's going to be a margin top of 44. Yeah, so basically I wanted to have a gap of 44 pixels on the top of the element that's right after the navigation bar. So I'm going to copy this navgap class. I'm going to go all the way down here, look for the COVID-19 announcement bar, and include it right here after that. And there we go, right after the navigation bar. Now I have that. One of the things that we noticed too from the Apple website, and that's the last thing that I'm doing here, is basically when I go all the way to the top, like I can still see the elements below it, right? There is a opacity kind of on the, and of course this blur effect, so we can replicate that for when we talk about the navigation bar, when we create a navigation bar in the next video. But for this video I'm going to just basically create that transparency, and the way to do that is basically go to the navigation here, and I say that I'm going to basically customize that background color for the navigation. It's going to be background, let me see if this works first. Red, no. So I actually need to overwrite the dark pattern that I create. So it's going to be nav dark background red. And if I do that, it's still not working. Is this together? There you go, it's together. Okay. So background color red. Nope. I think like if I change, which one has precedence more? Background color. So let's try background color, and then here in the navigation I'm doing background red. Save. Background color. Save. Nope, did not work. I'm going to try nav.dark background red. There we go, that works. So navigation dark is going to basically be, oh actually I think it did not work before because I did something wrong here. Yeah, I tried to use it as a class. That was my mistake, right? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I tried to use it as a class. It's not a class, it's just this. Background blue. There you go, it works. Just works. So navigation.dark, I'm going to say that basically the background color is going to be it's going to be RGBA. So basically A here is for alpha channel. So red, green, blue, and alpha channel. I'm going to say 0, 0, 0, and then 0.8, and I think 9. That's 0.9 opacity, 90% opacity. So as you can see, if I scroll now, I can actually see the element below it, and it just works. So let me change something here. This is back to background. Okay, yeah, that's it. So this is basically the basic structure for a website like the Apple website as of today. All right, next video we're going to go over all the elements here, make it look exactly like the website. So looking forward to that, and I'll talk soon, guys. Bye.